After a bit of a rough 2022 campaign, this top Red Sox prospect is back and he may just be better than ever. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and one of the top prospects within the Red Sox farm system for the last couple of years now has been Nick Yorke. After being drafted in the first round of 2020, there is a lot of promise in Nick Yorke as a player. He's had his ups in this system, and most recently, he's had a lot of downs as well, but this year he looks fully revamped and ready to go, which is great news for Nick as well as the Boston Red Sox. So what we're going to do in today's video is break down what Nick Yorke has been doing this year, why it's such a comeback story, and we're going to talk about what this means for Nick Yorke and his timeline to the major leagues, as well as what his impact on the Boston Red Sox could look like. But before we get into that, Foco.com is having their biggest bobblehead sale of the year. That's right, Bobble Bash is here for one day only. Today you can get up to 60% off on almost every single Red Sox bobblehead in stock. So if you like bobbleheads like the two I have sitting right behind my head right now, or just Red Sox collectibles in general, this is the perfect time to take advantage of this sale and get yourself some really unique and exciting Red Sox bobbleheads and collectibles. All you have to do is click the link in the description of this video to take advantage of these insane deals, again, that are only available to midnight. It's 60% off almost every single bobblehead at Foco.com until midnight tonight. Click the link in the description to get started. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so for those of you who may not know the full backstory of why Nick Yorke struggled during his 2022 campaign, like I mentioned, it was a bit rocky. Nick Yorke came into the 2022 season as a top 100 prospect on most baseball rankings lists, right? MLB Pipeline had him in their top 100, Baseball America had him in their top 100. A lot of major MLB prospect rankings had Nick Yorke in their top 100 prospects. Unfortunately for Nick, though, to start the 2022 season, he sustained a wrist injury that kept him out for a pretty decent amount of time, and when he was able to come back and rejoin his team in high A baseball, nothing really clicked for him at the plate, and he struggled for the first time in his career as a hitter. He ended up finishing the 2022 season in high A baseball, where he finished with a stat line of just a 231 average, a 303 on base percentage, and a 365 slug, which resulted in a below average WRC plus at just 84. So about 16% below league average production than the average hitter in high A baseball for 2022. This campaign dropped him out of most people's top 100 prospect list by the end of the year. But the Red Sox kept their faith in Nick Yorke and invited him to Fall League Baseball. A big reason for this is that the Red Sox felt like the lack of production for Nick Yorke during the 2022 season had a lot to do with his wrist injury. Coming into the Fall League, Nick Yorke debuted a brand new batting stance. His original batting stance started his swing with his bat kind of on his shoulder or close to his shoulder, kind of similar to what Alex Verdugo does a little bit, right? It's very low and his hands were very low. Coming into the Fall League, he started his stance with his bat basically directly behind his head. His hands were a lot higher and his swing looked a lot smoother, and it ended up really working because at the end of the Fall League, in just 19 games, Nick Yorke finished with an impressive 342 average, a 424 on base percentage, and a 526 slug. He had 2 home runs and 18 RBIs in 19 games, and it looked like Nick Yorke got his groove back a little bit. Unfortunately, though, for Nick, this still wasn't enough for most MLB prospect rankings lists to move him back onto the top 100 list, and he started the 2023 season outside of the MLB's top 100 prospects. But this performance in Fall League was still enough for the Red Sox to believe in Nick Yorke enough where he was promoted to Double A baseball at the beginning of the year. And boy, did that decision work out, because Nick Yorke is absolutely killing it in Double A so far. Nick Yorke currently has a 286 average in Double A with a really impressive 397 on base percentage and a 460 slug, which is good for a 137 WRC plus, meaning that so far this year, Nick Yorke has been 37% more productive at the plate than the average hitter in Double A. This is a massive jump for a guy who really struggled during the 2022 season, and Nick Yorke attributes a lot of his success at the AA level to one, just simply being healthy and being able to be on the field, right? Obviously, that's a huge part of whether or not a prospect succeeds, is whether or not they can actually stay on the field. For Nick Yorke, he felt like it was really important the fact that he was healthy throughout the entire fall league, the fact that he was healthy throughout the entirety of spring training, and knock on wood, the fact that he's been able to stay healthy throughout the 2023 campaign so far. One of the really cool things about Nick Yorke's performance so far this year is that it was enough for at least one MLB prospect ranking list to put him back in the top 100. Baseball America's top 100 prospect list was updated just this week, and it had a couple of Red Sox making jumps. Marcelo jumped to the number 8 prospect in Major League Baseball, which is awesome on its own. Miguel Blaze remains on the top 100 list, even though he's hurt. He's still around the same, right at 88. And finally, Nick Yorke has officially rejoined Baseball America's top 100 prospect list, debuting again in this year at 96. So, what does this comeback season mean for Nick? What does this comeback season mean for the Red Sox, and how does this impact Nick Yorke's possible future outcomes? Well, obviously, when it comes to how this is going to affect Nick Yorke, it's going to affect it in a really great way, right? The fact that he was able to take the obstacles he faced in 2022 and come back stronger in 2023, and with all the work he's put in, to see that pay off is absolutely fantastic. Sometimes what we see with really highly touted prospects is that they don't really face a ton of adversity in the minor leagues. They sort of coast through the minor leagues, then get to the major leagues, and that's where they face their adversity. And sometimes that works out great, other times it doesn't, right? To have Nick Yorke as a guy who could be a really impactful player on this Red Sox team, already facing adversity and overcoming adversity in the minor league level, could make him a better ball player overall. As for his timeline and what this means for Nick Yorke and his path to the majors, what it does is it puts his timeline back on track, right? Last year, it felt like with his injury and with the way he was performing when he wasn't injured, his timeline was going to be a bit delayed. He was going to end up spending more time in the minor leagues than I think most people would have liked. This season, however, the fact that the Red Sox put their faith in him and brought him up to the AA level has paid off, and it feels like he's back on track to make that late 2024 jump to the major leagues like he's been predicted to make for the last couple of years. As for what this impact has on the Red Sox, like it was obvious with Nick Yorke how it's going to impact him, it's obviously going to impact the Red Sox in a really positive way. The first is obviously one of your prospects that you picked in the first round has put himself together and is back on track to be the player that you want him to be. But two, the fact that the Red Sox were a bit aggressive in promoting Nick Yorke after a rough 2022 season in High A and then a really great season in the Fall Baseball League to AA baseball is really paying off, which is awesome, right? We talked about it with the Marcelo video, but the fact that the Red Sox are being a bit more aggressive in their promotions with these prospects could end up really paying off within the next couple of years. So this is a big impact on the Boston Red Sox. It's going to be really cool to see sort of, okay, this worked out with Nick Yorke. How are we going to use what Nick Yorke has been able to do and apply it to other highly touted prospects in our system as well? So that's going to be a really interesting impact on the fact that Nick Yorke's having a comeback on the entirety of the Red Sox organization. One of the more interesting pieces to me about Nick Yorke's future on the Boston Red Sox is where the Red Sox are going to fit him in, right? Right now, you've got Trevor Story for the next couple of years. He's going to be around till 2027-ish, right? He's got an option at the end of his contract, which will most likely be picked up. So you're probably looking at 2027 with Trevor Story. Marcelo is absolutely tearing it up. He just earned a promotion, and it looks like his timeline's been pushed up a little bit, and that's sort of looking like the future of the middle infield for the Boston Red Sox. So where does Nick Yorke fit in all of this? Is he a very valuable trade piece? Is he a guy who we're going to see sort of start working out in the outfield? Where do you fit Nick Yorke is going to be one of the more interesting questions for the Boston Red Sox going forward. And it's a good problem to have prospects who you put faith in, who you drafted high, really doing well, and kind of an overload of prospects, especially up the middle of the infield, isn't a bad thing to have. Nick Yorke's not the greatest fielder in the world, but his hit potential is really, really high. What do you do with him? Do you trade him? Do you possibly move him position-wise? Or do you try and fit him into the middle infield of this Red Sox team at some point in the future? Let me know what your thoughts are on that down below, because I just think that's one of the more more interesting aspects of this entire thing. But at the end of the day, what Nick Yorke is doing during the 2023 season is really, really impressive. The fact that he was able to pull himself out of this adversity type season and really improve coming into 2023 is fantastic. Now, what does this mean for himself promotion wise? Do we see him in AAA at all this year? The honest answer is maybe, right? I think the Red Sox are going to be a bit cautious bringing him up to AAA. They want to make sure that he is doing really well in AA, and they want to make sure that all the problems that he had in 2022 are at the very least being improved upon, right? Maybe they're not fully behind him, but improved upon. So do I see a promotion in the near future for Nick Yorke to AAA? Probably not, but if he keeps hitting like this over the next couple of months, by the end of the year, I 100% believe that Nick Yorke will be in AAA Worcester. Overall, just an absolutely fantastic story, and I wish nothing but the best for Nick Yorke. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think of all this? What do you think of Nick Yorke's sort of comeback season? What do you think about Nick Yorke coming back and being on the top 100 prospect list? What do you think about Nick Yorke's timeline? And what do you think about Nick Yorke's impact on the Boston Red Sox? Let me know all your thoughts on the Red Sox number 4 prospect, Nick Yorke, in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe and that like button. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Don't forget, this is the biggest opportunity to get your bobbleheads at foco.com. Everything is about 60% off right now. Click the link in the description to get yourself some really awesome Red Sox bobbleheads today. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.